Hello, dear friends. I invite you on a fascinating journey to unveil the secrets of one of history's most enigmatic civilizations, the Sumerians. We'll explore their gods, myths, and legends, which have left an indelible mark on human culture. Be sure to support this video with a like and subscribe to the History and Mythology channel so you don't miss out on new, captivating stories about ancient peoples and their legends. The Sumerians, as one of the earliest civilizations, bequeathed us a vast legacy, including not only achievements in architecture and agriculture, but also a rich mythology that became the foundation for many subsequent cultures. This incredible world of myths and beliefs served not only to make sense of nature and existence, but also played a crucial role in the daily life of their society. Sumerian culture was deeply permeated by religious rituals, which served not only an aesthetic function, but also aimed to ensure harmony between the divine and humans. Each Sumerian city was a center of worship for its principal deity, and it was here that social, economic, and religious activities were concentrated. The architecture of the ziggurats symbolized the connection between the earthly and the celestial, serving not only as temples, but also as places for rituals, sacrifices, and celebrations. These multi-tiered structures, built from sun-dried brick, were true marvels of engineering. They also served as centers for gatherings where people discussed matters of governance, trade, and justice. Pilgrims and citizens gathered here not only for prayer, but also to affirm their social standing and address pressing issues, making the ziggurats the living heart of the Sumerian city. Sumerian mythology was a complex tapestry woven from myths about gods who reflected human emotions and actively participated in mortal lives. These deities were not distant or faceless figures. They possessed human weaknesses, passions, and joys, making them relatable and understandable to people. This humanization of the gods helped the Sumerians find comfort and hope during challenging times when the forces of nature seemed unpredictable. Sumerian myths weren't just isolated stories. They formed the basis of an extensive belief system. These beliefs shaped not only interpersonal relationships, but also laws and moral codes. Striving to please their gods, people endeavored to adhere to certain ethical standards, thereby maintaining social stability. For example, the myth of the Great Flood and the heroes who survived the cataclysm served as a reminder of human imperfections and the importance of following righteous paths. These narratives easily intersect with the stories of other ancient civilizations, and many were adapted. Thus, Sumerian creation myths found their continuation in Babylonian mythology, albeit in a modified form. This demonstrates how Sumerian ideas and beliefs continued to live on and evolve even after the decline of their civilization, finding new life in the written traditions of other peoples. Every myth, every story served not only as entertainment, but also had an educational purpose, helping to consolidate the knowledge, skills, and experience of generations. The Sumerians understood that their legends strengthened society and helped them make sense of the world. Every concept, every idea initially born in the Sumerian mind bore traces of their struggle for survival, their hopes, and their dreams. The Sumerians ushered the world into an era of knowledge thanks to Cuneiform, the first writing system they invented. This versatile set of symbols became not just a method of communication, but a true tool that paved the way for a new epic. The creation of cuneiform was driven by practical necessity. The Sumerians, actively establishing their city-states, sought order and efficient administration. The complexity of their society required people to record important agreements, keep track of property, create legal codes, and preserve religious texts. Each clay cylinder or tablet inscribed with symbols became a preserver of moments that might otherwise have vanished into oblivion. Ultimately, it was cuneiform that served as the foundation for all subsequent writing systems, leaving its mark on the cultures that followed the Sumerians. An attentive researcher can see how significant this contribution was by studying the texts that have survived to this day. The Code of Hammurabi, inspired by Sumerian legal codes, reflects fundamental principles of justice, fairness, and social order. These written sources not only confirm the sophisticated organization of Sumerian social life, but also serve as a kind of mirror reflecting the evolution of human ideas. Cuneiform evolved over time along with society. Complex symbols were simplified, adapted to new linguistic environments and cultural transformations. This capacity for adaptation helped the Sumerians maintain their uniqueness and influence neighboring cultures. Cuneiform acted as a catalyst for refining recording systems, simplifying the exchange of information. Every fragment of clay, preserved today in museums and at archaeological sites, can tell its own story. For instance, tablets recording agricultural activities show how the Sumerians achieved prosperity through their skill in cultivating the land. Trade contracts are living testaments to the dynamic routes that connected Sumerian cities with neighboring lands. Their writings have passed from antiquity to the present day, like an invisible thread connecting generations. Thus, cuneiform became not only a literary, but also a cultural legacy, managing to preserve and transmit the fundamental ideas of the Sumerian people to us. We, today's readers, act as catalysts for this connection, opening doors to a world once full of life, passion, and mysteries that echo through the centuries. Thanks to the Sumerians, we discover unknown depths of human experience and knowledge that will forever inspire both scholars and laypeople alike. The Sumerians perceived their rulers as intermediaries between themselves and the divine. Their pantheon was a complex hierarchy where each deity had specific functions and characteristics, playing a vital role in people's lives. They created new myths, birthed new legends, and people turned to them hoping for protection or blessings. Each deity governed specific aspects of nature and the cosmos, helping the Sumerians understand their place in the universe. Sumerian gods were often depicted in anthropomorphic form, although their power and authority surpassed all human comprehension. For example, Enlil, as the supreme deity, stood at the pinnacle of this hierarchy. He commanded the winds and storms. His name was associated with natural phenomena, the harvest in the fields, and success in war. In this sense, Enlil didn't just control the elements. He was a symbol of order and justice. On the other hand, Enki, the god of wisdom and water, possessed a more human-like nature. He often sought interaction with humans and understood their needs. His care for humanity was evident in myths where he saved his favorites from the wrath of other gods. Enki symbolized knowledge and ingenuity. He was the patron of crafts and agriculture. His willingness to share wisdom with humans made him a favorite among mortals. Inanna, the goddess of love and war, commanded special reverence as she embodied contradictory essences. On one hand, she personified passion and fertility. On the other, she could bring about destruction and conflict. In her temples and rituals, Sumerians experienced powerful emotions, worshipping her as the embodiment of strength and beauty. The myth of the sacred marriage between the king and Inanna became a metaphor for the unity of human life and the divine. The deity Utu, the sun god, was another significant figure in Sumerian mythology. As the personification of light and order, Utu made his daily journey across the sky, illuminating the world and symbolizing justice. The Sumerians believed he was the judge of souls in the afterlife. His gaze missed neither the righteous nor the sinners, emphasizing the necessity of honest and just behavior during life. The Sumerians created numerous myths that reflected both their inner world and external circumstances. For example, the myth of the Great Flood served as a warning about the need to respect divine powers. The way Sumerians described interactions with the gods highlighted the importance of generosity and adherence to rituals. Each ritual was a kind of contract with the deities, manifesting their influence in daily life. Thus, through every prayer, every sacrifice, and every rite, the Sumerians sought to establish harmony in their lives, feeling divine protection and blessing. The gods were their allies, protectors, and judges simultaneously, and their presence was felt in many aspects of earthly existence. Sumerian mythology was not just a collection of tales, it was the foundation of a comprehensive belief system. It played a role not only in cultic practices, but also shaped social order, reflecting ideas about life and death, fate and immortality. Every story, whether about gods or humans, contained important lessons passed down through generations, allowing the Sumerians to find meaning and explanations for the world around them. The Epic of Gilgamesh is a prime example of this approach. It embodies many themes that have concerned humanity since time immemorial: the struggle against fate, the quest for immortality, the value of friendship and love. Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, was not just a mythical figure, but also a symbol of human nature. His search for immortality was driven by the fact that he was a demigod, endowed with incredible strength and wisdom. But his weakness lay in being human, experiencing fear and anxiety. He couldn't escape tragedy when he lost his friend Enkidu, and it was this experience that prompted his reflections on mortal life. Throughout their history, the Sumerians used myths to comprehend natural phenomena and human passions. For instance, the story of the flood experienced by Utanapishtim, a prototype for Noah, served not only as a warning about the wrath of the gods, but also as a tale of hope and salvation through hardship. This theme is timeless. It suggests that within every catastrophe lies the potential for a new beginning. Sumerian mythology also touched upon philosophical questions about fate and free will. These narratives raised questions about the extent to which life is predetermined. The hero struggling against a preordained destiny symbolized humanity's striving for independence, for control over one's own life, despite the omnipotence of the gods. The Sumerians believed that gods could intervene in mortal affairs, but each person, like Gilgamesh, had to find their own path and make choices. The Sumerian belief system was an integral part of their culture and social structure. It justified the structure of society and moral norms. people strove to achieve harmony and order in the world so that the gods would remain pleased. This interaction between humans and the divine closes the circle. Myths not only shape the perception of the world, but also define lifestyles, relationships, and behavior. Every legend, especially those preserved on cuneiform tablets, reminded the Sumerians of the importance of communing with the divine and the necessity of showing respect for higher powers. Thus, Sumerian mythology was not merely an entertainment tool, but a vital part of their identity, leading to an understanding of their existence within the vast expanse of time and fate. It created connections between generations, allowing the living to find meaning through the experiences and wisdom of their ancestors. Each deity in the Sumerian pantheon played a unique role, reflecting complex aspects of human nature and the surrounding world. An, as the sky god, symbolized majesty and infinity, acting as the father of the gods and the founder of cosmic order. His figure commands respect, yet he remains somewhat detached from the affairs of worldly inhabitants. In contrast, his son Enlil, the god of wind and storms, embodied an active principle, full of passion and a drive for order. It was through him that the direct will of the divine entered the world, shaping the destinies of people and nations. Enlil, in his rule, represents a kind of archetypal control, imposing strict demands. His conflict with Enki, the god of wisdom and water, reflects the dynamic between nature and civilization. Enki, wise and cunning, counteracts strict order. This conflict symbolizes the eternal contradictions between freedom of choice and the necessity of following established rules. Sumerian myths raise questions about the extent of human freedom within the divine order, as well as the darker aspects of power. Each Sumerian deity reveals one of the many facets of human life. Enlil represents the relentless struggle against chaos, opposing forces that seek to bend the world to their will. While Ninurta possesses his own warrior energy, often associated with agriculture and hunting too, Inanna, the goddess of love and war, is the embodiment of contradiction. She combines both tenderness and ferocity, inspiring respect and awe. Inanna is perhaps the most complex deity in the pantheon, as she is not merely a guardian of love. She embodies destructive power, revealing not only beauty, but also the darker side of human nature. Another significant figure, Ninhursag, mistress of the earthly landscapes, represents the connection between heaven and earth. She not only creates, but also protects fertility, making her central to agriculture and the prosperity of Sumerian society. Ninhursag reflects the idea that harmony in the world can be achieved through caring for nature and accumulating wisdom. The uniqueness of the Sumerian pantheon lies in the fact that the gods are not abstract. They mirror human emotions and life situations. Their myths told of human fears, hopes, and the search for immortality. They were not just endowed with powers, but also possessed qualities inherent to humans: jealousy, love, hatred, and ambition. These myths depict struggles between various aspects of life. By studying the Sumerian gods and their complex dynamics, we can understand how profound insights into human nature, the facets of good and evil, remain relevant today. The unique traits of the Sumerian deities best reflect human nature and the drive for knowledge, searching for answers to the eternal questions of life, death and destiny. In this, they continue to inspire and fascinate our imagination, highlighting the enduring interest in their legacy. Gilgamesh, king of Uruk, was created not just in the sense of physical birth, but in that his life and deeds transformed him into a living legend. His name resonated in every corner of the Sumerian lands. However, he still felt an unsettling lack of true meaning in existence. He possessed great power, was a figure of virtually divine status, yet even with many gifts, he could not reconcile himself to the inevitability of his mortality. He keenly lacked an understanding of what it meant to truly live, and like an echo of his struggle, he contemplated immortality, crossing the boundary between the human and the divine. In search of immortality, Gilgamesh left his homeland, taking his loyal friend Enkidu, whose simplicity and wisdom served as his support. The wind blew in his face, and Gilgamesh answered the call of distant mountains where, according to legend, lived Utanapishtim, the only human to have survived the Great Flood. This journey became a symbol of an inner quest. Each step brought him closer to the truth. He learned not only through fear, but also through his growing awareness. On the way to Utanapishtim, Gilgamesh faced numerous trials: wild beasts, raging rivers, and vast mysterious forests. Each of these obstacles was overcome with Enkidu, but each victory pointed to a central truth. The more one strives for immortality, the more one is drawn to the impermanence of human life. When Gilgamesh reached the riverbank, Utanapishtim met him with gentle yet firm wisdom. He regarded Gilgamesh's passionate desires with understanding, but emphasized that immortality cannot be achieved through physical strength or determination alone. Only the gods are immortal, he stated. And these words, full of profound truth, pierced Gilgamesh's heart, forcing him to ponder what truly constitutes the meaning of life, if not its finiteness. Utanapishtim spoke of the simple joys of life and the necessity of accepting one's fate. He said that what matters is not how many years one lives, but the legacy one leaves behind. And these words became a revelation for Gilgamesh. He understood that immortality lies not in eternal life, but in how people remember him, the world he built, and how his name might echo on the lips of future generations. When Gilgamesh returned to Uruk, he brought back a treasure more valuable than the idea of immortality. He had learned to appreciate simple moments, friendship, joy, and life in all its multifacetedness. He realized that his true legacy would be defined not by how long he lived, but by what he did for his people. This discovery transformed his perspective, like the sun rising above the horizon, bringing hope and new possibilities. Gilgamesh became not only a king, but also a symbol of an era, a sage who entered not just the pantheon of Sumerian lore, but also the hearts of people yearning for truth about their own lives. Deities associated with the heavens and the underworld held a special place in the Sumerian mythological pantheon, yet they also remain enigmatic symbols that continue to intrigue people to this day. These beings, initially appearing in ancient lore as guardians of order and justice, began to accumulate myths and interpretations, sometimes far removed from their origins. Their image transformed, especially in modern discourse, where they acquired new meanings and attributions, often regarding the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were members of the Supreme Divine Council, possessing immense power and influence over all aspects of human life. Unlike humans, who sought meaning in relationships, art, and creation, the Anunnaki existed outside human reality, on their own divine plane. They were not subject to the same rules as some other gods. Their function was to establish balance between heaven and earth, guiding human destinies, but with less direct intervention in daily affairs than other deities. Modern theories have linked the Anunnaki with extraterrestrials, attempting to find a new explanation for them. These theories emerged in the 20th century, and although popular among enthusiasts of adventure and mystery, find no support in the primary sources. In Sumerian texts, the Anunnaki appeared not as aliens from distant planets, but as divine beings possessing liminal qualities. They were simultaneously celestial and terrestrial. This duality perhaps gave them a different kind of responsibility compared to other gods who were more actively involved in worldly affairs. It's important to understand that the Anunnaki were not solitary deities, but part of a more complex pantheon, where each found their place, interacting with others. They determined both the development of the world and the fates of peoples. Their interactions often stemmed from conflict. Many creation myths, where the Anunnaki play a key role in establishing order after outbreaks of chaos, confirm their significance. In Sumerian cosmogony, the Anunnaki undoubtedly held a significant role, but their influence also permeates later mythologies, underscoring their importance for understanding the evolution of human conceptions of the divine. Their presence can be traced in biblical texts and the myths of other cultures, where they are transformed, yet remain true to their origin as symbols of order. This flow of meanings and interpretations allows us to see how one culture can influence another, adapting old images to new contexts. Thus, the Anunnaki remain an enigmatic topic in discussions about ancient civilizations, despite the diversity of interpretations and theories. Their original purpose as guardians of the balance between the divine world and the human world confirms their importance for understanding Sumerian mythology. They were not just distant rulers, but archetypes reflecting humanity's aspiration for order and justice in an incompletely understood world. The most famous myth preserving the sparks of Sumerian mythology is the tale of the Great Flood. This myth holds particular significance not only within the context of Sumerian texts, but also within the broader cultural dialogue spanning ancient civilizations. In Sumerian texts, Utanapishtim, the survivor of the catastrophe, becomes a central figure with parallels in the biblical Noah and characters from other cultures. These parallels underscore the universality of the flood myth, which exists in various interpretations and has retained its relevance across centuries. The Great Flood myth in the Sumerian tradition includes a detailed description of the catastrophe brought about by the god's wrath. Enlil, one of the chief gods of the Sumerian pantheon, decides to destroy humanity, believing their noise and commotion disturb the peace of the heavens. However, Enki, the god of wisdom and water, cares for Utanapishtim's fate and warns him of the impending catastrophe, instructing him to build a large boat. This confirms the idea that the gods are not always united in their decisions, and human fate can be altered by the intervention of a deity wishing to preserve balance. In several other cultures, we also find flood myths with very similar narratives. For example, the biblical book of Genesis describes how Noah, commanded by God, builds an ark to save his family and representatives of all animals from the all-consuming floodwaters. The flood here appears as a trial and purification, where only the righteous and worthy are given a chance for salvation. The parallels between Utanapishtim and Noah highlight that the belief in the need for purification after societal moral decline was common across human cultures. Interestingly, beyond Mesopotamia, the flood myth appears among other peoples as well. Among the indigenous peoples of the Amazon Delta, there is also a tradition of a great flood where an angered deity decides to cleanse the world, punishing the unrighteous and saving only a chosen few. Even in Greek mythology, we find analogous stories like that of Deucalion, who escapes a flood thanks to divine counsel. These examples indicate that the flood myth is not just a local phenomenon, but a global cultural symbol that has resonated with many peoples. It reflects shared fears and concerns about the consequences of human actions. Throughout the centuries, flood stories have served as a kind of warning that discord and wickedness can lead to destruction, but they also offer hope for rebirth and a new beginning for those who follow the path of virtue. People today continue to turn to this myth, studying it and drawing lessons that remain relevant. Thus, the Great Flood myth not only serves as a link between Sumerian and biblical cultures, but also forms a bridge to other mythologies, demonstrating the universality of human aspirations. It asserts that regardless of geographical location or time period, the fundamental questions of existence and humanity's relationship with the divine remain pertinent to all cultures. Inanna, the goddess of love and war, holds a special place in Sumerian mythology. She is one of the most striking examples of a powerful female figure in the history of this ancient people. Her image is multifaceted. She embodies both passion and destruction, and in this context, her interactions with other gods often reflect complex dynamics heightened by struggles for power and influence among the deities. Inanna is not just a goddess. She is an archetype of the woman capable of both bestowing life and leading to death. Her adventures depict her not only as alluring, but also as a destructive force. She attracts lovers, leads them to glorious deeds, and then, if they refuse to submit to her will or reject her, she can turn on them in fury. This makes her simultaneously both sides of a conflict, protector and aggressor. Inanna's confrontations with other gods demonstrate a conflict characteristic of Sumerian mythology, the clash between personal ambition and divine order. Scenes of power struggles between her and rivals often transform into metaphors for the broader war of human passions. Driven by ambition, she could disregard former alliances, but this is precisely what makes her image so multi-layered and fascinating for scholars. It's no coincidence that Ninurta, god of agriculture and hunting, also stands out as an important deity, displaying a complexity of character similar to Inanna's. Ninurta appears before us as a victor, a protector, and at the same time, a responsible figure striving to establish order. His mythological adventures are full of dynamism and conflict, where he often resolves complex situations, facing challenges head-on. These gods, personifying different aspects of existence, love and war, hunting and agriculture, show how diverse the Sumerians' conceptions of the divine could be. Inanna, using her charisma and power, can turn the fates of gods and humans, while Ninurta, possessing wisdom and patience, restores order from chaos. They are two sides of the same coin, upon which are etched not only victories, but also losses. Myths associated with these deities explore numerous themes, including rivalry, passion, power, and destiny. Inanna, with her volatile nature, and Ninurta as a symbol of stability, operate within narratives that don't just tell stories, but offer us lessons about human existence and interaction. They become mirrors for Sumerian society, reflecting its fears, hopes, and passions. These narratives are not only age-old symbols of divine order and control, but also profound reflections on human nature, on what it means to be alive in a world full of conflict and contradiction. They are not only prominent figures in the Sumerian pantheon, but also the foundation for numerous mythologies of future civilizations, reflected in the tales of subsequent generations. The Sumerian underworld was not merely a place for souls departing this world, but an entire mythological system touching upon the most crucial aspects of human existence. This realm was ruled by entities, each personifying opposing aspects of life and death. Their appearance and behavior were a vivid reflection of human fears and hopes, creating an image of the underworld as a place of no return, where absolute darkness reigns. Ereshkigal, Queen of the Dead, held the souls who had left the earth in her grasp, cutting them off from the light and warmth of life. Her underworld realm, known as Kur, was a place of eternal oblivion. There, feelings were erased, hopes extinguished, and experiences became mere dark shadows stirring in gloomy corridors. It was not a place of rest. Souls suffered, enveloped in a dark aura devoid of joy or solace. Loss of identity and oblivion became central themes, emphasizing the hopelessness of the underworld realm. People believed that if their relatives did not remember the departed, they would dissolve into the void and vanish forever from memory. Nergal, Lord of War and Destruction, complemented this bleak picture, representing a force capable of dictating the terms of existence in the underworld. His fury and might served as harbingers of fear for the living. He not only held sway over life and death, but also personified the inevitability that every soul would eventually face. Together with Ereshkigal, they embodied the grim balance between life and death. Their myths convey not only terror, but also a sense that this grim reality was an inescapable part of existence. However, the Sumerians did not neglect their dead. They developed rituals and rites as a kind of bridge between this world and the afterlife. Priests in each community offered prayers and offerings, maintaining the connection between the living and the dead, allowing souls to feel a semblance of the joy and care they once knew on earth. In this context, the underworld becomes not only a place of final destiny, but also an arena for the persistence of memory. The images of the beings dwelling there permeated the consciousness of the living, prompting reflection on their own destiny and the value of their lives and actions, suggesting that these actions had consequences in the afterlife. Existence and memory become key themes, weaving a thread of meaning through the mythological narratives. Thus, the somber Sumerian underworld reflects not only their fear of death and oblivion, but also a profound connection between the worlds. Within each ritual, each offering, lay the hope that the forgotten would not depart this world entirely, that in dying, they continued to live on in the hearts of those remaining on earth, lest neglect erase their names. The Sumerians vanished, but their legacy endures. It has influenced cultures and worldviews for many centuries. After the fall of Sumerian civilization, their myths and beliefs were passed on to the Babylonians, Assyrians, and many other peoples, testifying to the profound mark left by this first known civilization. Inspired by Sumerian gods and heroes, new interpretations of their stories later emerged, transforming into the mythologies of other peoples. Meanwhile, the thoughts and ideas about human life, love, death, and immortality continue to resonate in people's hearts, just as they did many centuries ago. The legacy of the Sumerians has permeated literature and art. Contemporary authors, artists, and screenwriters draw inspiration from this rich mythology, creating new works that explore the same themes. The Epic of Gilgamesh, which traces the quest for immortality and the meaning of life, remains relevant and sought after. Although its plot has been modified over time, it contains key questions about human existence that have not lost their significance. Interpretations of Sumerian myths allow modern society to better understand its predecessors, their world, quests, and internal conflicts. The influence of the Sumerians is also noticeable in religious texts. Many biblical motifs find echoes in Sumerian myths, serving as a bridge between ancient beliefs and modern religious traditions. Stories of a worldwide flood, like the Sumerian myth of Utanapishtim and the biblical story of Noah, show how different cultures construct their narratives about divine intervention. The Sumerian concept of the divine as a complex force, entailing both positive and negative consequences, took root in other mythologies and teachings. Echoes of Sumerian culture also manifest in music and rituals that continue to inspire people worldwide. Traditions based on Sumerian rituals leave their imprint on modern ceremonies and holidays, indicating that despite the changes over centuries, some values have remained constant. Looking at the modern world, one can see their contribution to understanding that rituals are a way to connect with the past, create identity, and maintain social order. Furthermore, archaeological finds and research continue to reveal new facets of Sumerian civilization. They expand our understanding of their society, culture, and art. Research uncovers not only the material traces of their daily life, but also the social structures that existed nearly 5,000 years BCE. This demonstrates how they strove for order and harmony in their world, which can still be relevant for contemporary societies. The Sumerians posed fundamental questions that we continue to ask ourselves today in our search for meaning and purpose in life. And although their society may only be a memory, the joy, sorrow, and eternal quests captured in their myths and legends continue to touch people's hearts, making the Sumerian legacy vibrant and relevant even in the modern world.